John Bollinger with PremierGuitar.com, and we're in Nashville, Tennessee with Benson in his studio. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for being here.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your live rig, since we're kind of near it?
Yeah. Well, it's very simple, as you can see. In fact, it doesn't include this guitar. This is the 1959 original version of this, which now I play live. I keep this locked up tight at home.
Sure.
Sadly, it's possibly on its last leg, so I want to make those legs last as long as possible.
What's the model name or number for that?
This is a Guild Aristocrat. It's a 1959 semi-hollow body piece of beauty, and it's got these Soap Bar P90s, which are screaming. This guitar sounds incredible. In fact. And it's not often you find these sounding this great. The pickups typically come unwound and don't sound great. But this one, for some reason, just has that, that mojo. It's great.
It looks like a spruce top almost. Is that?
Yeah, it does look like spruce to me, if I had to say.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. So now they're making them just recently. They've started to reissue them in very limited quantities, I guess. So I'm taking that on the road, and that sounds really good. So
great. And does the reissue sound pretty similar to your original one?
Similar enough, yeah. I mean, of course. I mean, it does sound really good, yeah. But I wouldn't say, it's exact. It's good enough.
Okay, so you go from the Guild into one pedal, is that right?
I do, yeah. Son Kong by Spontaneous Audio Devices here in Nashville, Tennessee, and it's sort of a parametric EQ type situation here. This is the Q, which adjusts the Q, the shape of the curve of the frequency. This is your choice of frequency, and this is your gain, either cutting or boosting. So essentially, you can sort of tune your guitar, your amp, your sound, to the room, really, which is nice, because you go to different places, different stages, suddenly your rig sounds weird or not right, and I like that about that. So you can kind of dial it into the room, and I won't go into too much detail. You got two volume knobs here, which you can switch. So you can have one sort of clean, one overdriven, or whatever. You can do a lot more than I'm saying, really, but and then and I just go to this AC30 here, this sort of one of those hand wired things that sounds really nice. And it's nice because I usually bypass the master volume, but it's nice to have that in small rooms. And
sure. Great. So on a fly-to gig, you just show up with a guitar and one pedal and back one.
Yeah, and that's another thing. That's another cool thing about the Son Kong is you can dial in pretty much any amp.
Oh, great. And it's got an XLR out, so you record with it as well.
Yeah, that's the whole reason I bought it in the first place was because it's such a great bass DI. And in fact, it's almost it's almost so good you don't need an amp sound. I mean, I'm usually blending the DI and the amp sound, and with this, it's like push up the fader, and it's like that sounds great. This is perfect.
Great.
No need for an amp. But then I discovered it on I plugged it into my guitar and amp, and I loved it immediately.
Great. So incredibly simple live rig. Let's talk about your studio rig, since we're in your studio.
Okay, yeah, the studio rig's a little more complicated.
Although you only use one pedal live, you've got a huge treasure chest of
pedals. Yeah, I've sort of amassed this along the way. Most of it's junk, but there's some gems in here. I really like this company here. I think I'm not even sure how to say it. Maybe Catalan Bread, but these are kind of my go-tos. These are great.
What are they? Are they overdrives?
Well, they kind of do different things, and I hope I do them justice here. But I think this is just gain, more gain. We got a tone knob here. This is more of like a distortion pedal, and And then this is a crazy, weird sort of, well, harmonic mesmerizer. I don't know what, They're cool, man. I don't know, and I don't know. I also sort of, I don't know, the old tried and true TC Electronic chorus flanger thing. It's like seen better days, but it sounds great. And of course, I love full tone stuff. So the OCD pedal is also a go-to, and I've got one of their tube echoes, and I love that. But yeah, it's mostly it's in the studio it sometimes gets a little frantic, and mostly I'm running in here just throwing pedals onto the ground and listening until it sounds good.
Well, cool. Well, let's look at some of your amps.
Okay.
You've got an incredible collection of amps here. Want to tell us a little bit about a few of them?
Sure. Well, this Marshall is one of my favorites, called an offset, I believe, because, well, I know it's because the speakers are, there's 4 12-inch speakers in there, and they're, instead of symmetrical, they're offset for some reason. But it's incredibly loud, and it sounds great. I used it in the Raconteurs just to compete with Jack and his volume on stage.
So that's a loud band.
That's a very loud band, yeah. So that was perfect for that. I took that all around the world, and it treated me right. It was actually it was in the flood
at soundcheck.
At soundcheck, yeah, and it was completely drenched, and I carefully took it apart and dried it out in my basement with a humidifier, and for weeks.
Wow.
Took it all apart, dried it out, put it back together, turned it on, and I think sounded even better than.
Wow. So
I was lucky, but yeah, and in the studio, mostly for recording though, I like to use smaller amps. And as you can see here, I have a lot of SuperOs, which I'm a big fan of. Been collecting them for a long time. This is probably my favorite. This was I believe that, I think the story goes that Jimmy Page played SuperOs, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the first couple records, maybe, or something like that. But yeah, this is a 112. This thing just screams. I love it. It's great for, studio recording. These are some older SuperOs from the 50s.
Oh, great.
These are mostly, I think, mid 60s. And
wow. So you've got this one, and then these 2 kind of identical ones.
Yeah.
What are those back?
Let's see, one of these, that's I think a 115, kind of a later Thunderbolt, which was the more common, I think the most common SuperO ever. This is a 210. The model numbers escape me at the moment, but 110 here. They each have their own character.
Right. And if you just found these, you kind of keep an eye open for them and found them.
Yeah, I haven't really bought any SuperOs in a long time. The price went up a lot. I used to be able to find them like a couple $100 or something.
Right.
But now I think they've become sort of fashionable, and maybe they're not so fashionable anymore. At one point they were. I was like, okay, forget it. I can't afford this anymore. But anyhow, the Silvertones as well. There's there's one behind there.
Yeah, this little guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. And there's one over there, the 212, that I think is probably the most common.
This Sears Silvertone. It was your first amp, right?
It was the Twin 12. It's become, I think, pretty popular.
Right.
But at the time, it was the only amp in the music shop that I could afford. I think everyone, it was maybe the early 90s, and most guitar players had, Marshalls and stuff, and cool, whatever, Fender amps and stuff. But I could only afford this, and I'm so glad that I did buy it, because it became part of my sound,
Right.
And I took it all over the world. And in fact, when I bought it, it was so new. It was, it's probably mid 60s or something, but when I got it, it was in such great shape, and it was really loud and clean, and you don't really get that. You don't find that very often with these amps. But it's since started to kind of, the component, tubes have sagged a little bit, and it's all original, and it's got that sound now, that compressed, sort of distorted, sooner, sound that is very cool. But I think it's kind of interesting that since it's been in my possession, it's got old.
Right. Yeah, I got that vintage mojo.
Yeah.
Do you remember what you paid for it?
I don't. Probably, maybe a couple $100.
Great.
I think now they're upward, like of 1,000 maybe or something like that.
Yeah. Great. Well, let's talk guitars.
Well, we'll start with this one. This is a Motorav Bel Air. This is made by a guy named Mark Fouquet. I believe he's in North Carolina, maybe, or something. Anyhow, he hand builds these, and as you can see, I had him put my son's name in the headstock there.
Very cool.
But these are incredible guitars. Sound amazing. The pickups are great, and they're very cool, very heavy, and very big. I actually took this on the road with me for a little while, and then realized when I saw pictures of me on the road that it sort of dwarfed me. Like I looked, so I decided to take something a little smaller out on the road with me. That's how vain I am. But yeah, they sound amazing. And this Casino, the 1965 Epiphone Casino, red, as you can see, which I think is not very common. But this is the first sort of expensive guitar that I ever bought. First vintage guitar I ever bought. It was like, I don't know, I put down quite a bit of money for this. I think it was, at the time maybe like $1,500, which was,
a bargain.
Big deal. Well, yeah.
A bargain, yeah.
But also a big deal at the time, for me. But I'm really glad I did, because it's served me well. I mean,
how long have you had it?
I think I got this maybe in 93, 94, or something like that. So and I immediately had a huge flake case made for it, and I've taken very good care of it. I love it.
Yeah.
I got a couple James Trussart guitars that I like a lot. Played this a lot with the Raconteurs, and this one and this baritone over here. This is fun. Baritone guitar.
Now, are they both metal body?
They are. Trussart, he makes these crazy sort of, metal guitars. I don't know.
Yeah.
He's a cool guy. He's quite a character, quite a French character. And but I love Bill Nash's stuff. I've got a couple of Bill Nash tellies that I like a lot. This one and this one. No, sorry, not that one. And I mean, geez, it's cool to finally be able to have a place of my own where I can hang my guitars. Home is where you can hang your guitars.
Yeah.
And in this place, it works out well, because I normally work on my own stuff here or friends' stuff. It's all kind of in the family type thing, so I can have the guitars kind of on display, rather than, I think if it was open to the public, I might have to put a few away.
Right.
But yeah, and Guild, I love Guild guitars. I mean, I'm a fan of the Kinks and Dave Davies, so this is one similar to what he's played,
Is that an old?
It is. These are most of this stuff is vintage. This is I don't know what year this is. Probably early '60s. But for a long time, I didn't own anything. I don't think past 77 or something like that. But I've since acquired some new guitars, which I like a lot. I mean, this is my newest acquisition here. I don't know too much about this. I think this guy's from Colorado. It's called a Dobrato, the guy who makes these. Also metal. Dobra with a Bigsby on it,
Oh, great.
or Bigsby.
Yeah.
But yeah,
With a
really
pickup,
cool.
yeah.
With a pickup, which the pickup I gotta say is a little too bright sounding, but
Yeah.
but
Do you use that mainly for recording, or do you take it out and play live with it as well?
yeah, I usually just use it for recording. I think it's just one of those kind of fun toys, you know, to really kind of changes up a song
Right.
a lot. But yeah,
Great.
so there you have it.
Great, that's guitars.
Yeah.
Well, let's look at your studio, at your
Okay.
board. Okay, we've seen the pedal cache, we've seen the amp room, guitar room. Now we are in the control room. Tell me a little bit about it.
Well, let's see. Well, it first of all, I have this MCI 600 series console, which I love. It's great. It's small, 16 channel board. Fits in this room rather nicely, actually. In combination with the MCI JH16, JH16 16 track. It's actually got a 16 track head stack on there. It's a 24 channel tape recorder, but and I use Clasp, which is a device, very cool device by Endless Analog, that allows you to record onto tape and into Pro Tools simultaneously. So it calculates, I think it calculates the width, the distance between your record head and your playback head, and in an instant snaps it back in real time, so you can overdub and stuff
Sure.
like that.
Best of both worlds.
Yeah. And then I also use a lot of outboard gear. When I'm tracking, I usually use mostly outboard mic pre's and compressors and stuff, which you see here. And
Yeah, so what's your fave bit of outboard gear?
oh man, I think it's my Calrex. These Calrex mic pre's and EQs and these compressors. And I don't know. I couldn't tell you too much about them except that they sound great. I mean, I think they're I believe English and sort of maybe in the same ballpark as Neve, and I love them. I think they sound great. And of course, these retro Stay Level and the retro 610, I think it's called. No. Sorry, the retro 176 are great compressors, tube compressors. New, actually. So this is a combination of vintage and new stuff.
Yeah, how old is your board?
80s, maybe like 84. I got it in Detroit when I was living in Detroit. A friend, I think, told me I was working on I had a Mackie, a little like 1604 thing that I was using a lot, and in combination with a MCI 8-track, 1-inch 8-track, and a friend of mine said, "Oh, I've got a MCI console, and I'll sell you." And I was like, "Great, let's go look at it." And he showed it to me, and he said, "Yeah, I don't know, $400, or something like that." And I was like, "Sold. That's great." And I loved it. I mean, I learned on it, and so I know it, very well. I'm kind of lost on any other console. But,
Sure.
And I think he had gotten this stuff from a radio station in Detroit that was, getting rid of the antiquated, old, obsolete gear.
Right.
So yeah, I scored that day.
Yeah, perfect. So what kind of projects are you recording here?
At the moment, I'm working on a record by the Howling Brothers, who are a Nashville-based old-time trio. They do old-time, and they do bluegrass and country, and they do a lot. They're great. They're amazing. And this is the second record that we're working on together now. The first record was out on my record label, Ready Made Records, last year, I believe. It's called Howl, and then this new one, which will be out, it's pretty soon. I mean, we're just finishing up now, so I think it'll be out pretty soon. Also on Ready Made, and yeah, it's going really well. We're having fun.
Great. Well, hey, thanks so much for letting us into your studio,
Thank you.
letting us see your gear, and it's really been a pleasure.
Yeah, cool.
Okay. All right. This is John Bollinger with PremierGuitar.com. Thanks very much.